So for our first story, I guess we gotta get to Trump lies about hurricane aid. So Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Georgia, and Virginia 2 weeks ago, and honestly, it's been one of the most devastating hurricanes I've ever seen in my lifetime. As of now, there's been over 250 people killed, and some people are still missing. And I mean, like, the videos from some of these states is just crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like this. And for all the hype that Milton got, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still a really bad storm, but I mean, it's nothing compared to Helene, and that one didn't get nearly as much attention in the days leading up to it. Like, this is nuts, dude. I mean, look at that. Entire streets are just washed away. Like, a lot of these places you can't even get to rescue anybody. I mean, the before and afters of some of these are just nuts.
Of the devastation we're dealing with here.
Like, look at that before and after. Like, yikes. Everything's gone. But that didn't stop MAGA morons from immediately hopping on social media and starting to spread lies and conspiracies, with some asking, where's Biden and Kamala? And the bigger dipshits in the right-wing griftosphere were the most prominent spreaders of the misinformation. When we heard that Biden was just going to be flying around as our president, where is that guidance? You're supposed to be here helping us with this. It's almost a sense of abandonment. Unacceptable. Now I can forgive this kid. She seems kind of young and likely doesn't know any better. But you know who definitely does know better? Charlie fucking Kirk. That asshat knows damn well that it's better for Biden to survey the damage from the air than on the ground. One, so he can see more of the affected areas and get a better scope of which areas need more aid than others. And two, so he isn't diverting resources away from rescue efforts for them to secure a perimeter around everywhere he decides to go. I mean, the last thing you want in situations like this is a president dropping by and them having to secure like a quarter square mile around everywhere he decides to wander around. And, like, what do you expect an 82-year-old man to do in that situation? Start pulling people out of the rubble? That's not his job. That's FEMA's job. He sends the aid. He sends FEMA, which he already did a day before the hurricane even made landfall. And that's despite 100 Republican congressmen and senators voting against FEMA just 2 days before it hit. Like MAGA Republican Corey Mills, who demanded President Biden declare a pre-landfall emergency, and yet a few hours later voted to shut down the government. Or our good old buddy Mark Robinson, who was the only Carolina council member to not vote on hurricane emergency relief. And just so you know who not to re-elect, because they clearly don't give a rat's ass about you, here's the full list of Republicans who voted against FEMA funding before Helene hit. And, that's a little small for me to read here, so how about we get a nice up-close look so we don't leave anybody out here? Okay, I want everybody to get their 5 minutes of fame. Okay, from the House, we got James Baird of Indiana, Jim Banks of Indiana, Dan Bishop of North Carolina, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Mike Collins of Georgia, Andrew Clyde of Georgia, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Byron Donalds of Florida, Jeff Duncan of South Carolina. All the usual suspects are in here. Matt Gaetz of Florida, Paul Gozer of Arizona, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Clay Higgins, Louisiana, Debbie Lesko, Arizona, Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Rick McCormick of Georgia, Corey Mills of Florida, Ralph Norman of South Carolina, Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, Chip Roy of Texas, William Timmons of South Carolina, Mike Waltz of Florida, Daniel Webster of Florida. And from the Senate, we got Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Ted Budd of North Carolina, Josh Hawley, Missouri, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Tim Scott of South Carolina, Tommy Dumber Than a Tub of Shit Tuberville of Alabama. All the usual suspects are in here. And, just to be fair, let's take a look at that list of Democrats that voted against FEMA aid. Oh yeah, none. How about that? And that's a slight improvement from the 175 Republicans that voted against FEMA aid in 2021. At the time, 114 of them were up for re-election, so kind of be interesting to see how many of them got re-elected just to turn around and do the exact same thing to the people that voted for them. Anyway, but Trump didn't let those pesky facts get in the way of him immediately heading down to Georgia to spread lies and divert precious resources away from the rescue efforts to protect his fat ass and build a little wall for him to do his lie fest / photo op in front of. So yeah, if you were in Georgia at the time and, I don't know, had trouble getting food or were stuck in your house or buried under rubble or something, just know that people couldn't help you because they were too busy building a little wall for Trump to stand in front of while he spewed bunch of fucking lies. Yeah, and this is the circus that Trump brought to town. This is exactly what you don't want in an emergency, is the president or former president or presidential candidate to come to town and bring this circus with him, diverting attention and resources from the much more important rescue efforts that people should be focusing on. Instead, they're focusing on securing a perimeter for him to stand around and spread lies. That's what you don't want, people. But Trump decided to go down there and lie to reporters about Governor Brian Kemp being ignored by Biden and Harris.
Governor Kemp spoke with President Biden yesterday, but he hasn't in the show. He hasn't.
And by the way, this was the day after Kemp had already given a press conference saying he spoke to Biden, so he knew at this point. Trump knew he was lying. I mean, he always knows he's lying. He just doesn't care. That's part of his thing. You said on Truth, what does it say? You said on Truth Social that you were getting reports that Democrats are intentionally not getting aid to Republican areas. What is that in reference to? Trump, just take a look. And you can kind of hear the other guy saying, where's that coming from? Do you have any evidence of that? No, he doesn't, because he's just making it up, because he's a fucking liar. And Trump's marathon of lies continued, with him claiming that he was working with Elon Musk to get Starlink to affected areas, despite the fact that the Biden administration and FEMA had already bought and deployed dozens of Starlink satellites.
In Georgia and North Carolina, which has really been hit. We were going there also, and they don't have communication. They don't have anything right now. We're trying to. I just spoke to Elon. I'm getting him. We want to get Starlink hooked up because they have no communication whatsoever. And Elon will always come through. We know that. And so we're working on that, getting them hooked up. They asked me whether or not that would be possible. We're going to try and get the Starlink in there as soon as possible because they have no communication.
Yeah, except they did. Dozens of Starlink satellites deployed for Hurricane Helene by the Biden administration. Trump said he was working with Elon Musk to get Starlink hooked up after Hurricane Helene, but FEMA said it was already deployed. The White House said on Monday dozens of Starlink satellite systems that provide high-speed internet access were in use in North Carolina, with over 100 more in transit to areas devastated by Hurricane Helene. The announcement came as former President Donald Trump said earlier on Monday he spoke to billionaire Elon Musk about setting up the internet access, falsely claiming that the systems had yet to be deployed. And to top it off, he then decided to lie about the governor of Georgia not being able to get a hold of Biden, despite Governor Brian Kemp himself saying earlier that he had already spoken to Biden.
We do need some help from the federal government. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. The governor needs to, he's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him.
I just spoke, the president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. and he just said, hey, what do you need? And I told him, you know, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that.
This prompted Biden to call out Trump on his BS, while Harris suspended her campaign to announce specific relief measures.
Trump has accused both of you of ignoring the disaster.
He is lying. Let me get this straight. He's lying. And the governor told him he was lying. The governor told me he was lying. I've spoken to the governor, spending time with him, and he told me he's lying. I don't know why he does this. And the reason I get so angry about it, I don't care about what he says about me, but I care what he communicates to the people that are in need. He implies that we're not doing everything possible. We are.
So far, more than 3,300 federal personnel are on the ground to assist with recovery efforts. They are deploying food, water, and generators. And we continue to work with teams on the ground to restore water and power as quickly as possible. You all do that work around the clock as though these are your family members. I know how you work, and I know how hard you work. So I am here mostly to thank you all for all that you do.
Biden and Harris both said they'd survey the affected areas after it was safe for them to do so without impeding the recovery and diverting already strained resources away from rescue efforts.
And now we're going to be landing in Raleigh for a briefing with the Emergency Operations Center, and I'll then do an aerial tour of Asheville. It's too much for me in terms of interrupting access to help there to land and to survey the damage other through the air.
And over the past 24 hours, I have spoken with Governor Kemp of Georgia, Governor Cooper of North Carolina, and many local officials. I have shared with them that we will do everything in our power to help communities respond and recover. And I've shared with them that I plan to be on the ground as soon as possible, but as soon as possible without disrupting any emergency response operations, because that must be the highest priority in the first order of business.
Which she did as soon as she got the all clear from people on the ground. VP Harris went to Augusta, Georgia to help distribute food at Henry Bingham Community Center and later helped out putting together care packages to hand out to victims. So in typical Republican fashion, when one of their lies gets exposed, they just pivot to another, which prompted Florida State Rep. Anna Paulina Luna to baselessly claim that almost $1 billion of FEMA funding was being given to illegal immigrants. So Whitney Fox, who's currently running against her, and you should definitely vote for her if you want a state rep that isn't a complete embarrassment, was quick to point out that Looney Luna was one of the 100 Republicans in Congress that voted to shut down the government the day before the hurricane hit.
The day before Hurricane Helene devastated Pinellas County, Anna Paulina Luna voted to shut down the government. Let that sink in. As the worst storm to hit Pinellas in my lifetime was hours away, Luna couldn't even set aside her partisan games, not even this once. She voted to delay critical FEMA aid and emergency support when we would need it most. This isn't leadership. It's a catastrophic failure. And Luna has repeatedly failed us, even voting to slash FEMA's budget by billions. We deserve better.
But that didn't stop the orange doofus from taking Luna's lie and repeating it over and over at his rallies.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season. You know, they're trying to get them on the voters' roll. We cannot let that happen.
So the Washington Post did some digging to find out the origins, or oranges as Trump would say, of this batshit conspiracy theory.
Take a look at the oranges of the investigation, the beginnings of that investigation.
And it basically boils down to Republicans either not knowing how the government that they're a part of even works, or, the much more likely scenario, them deliberately misinterpreting data to try and smear their political opponents. So how does Trump link this to migrants? A Trump campaign spokesman pointed to FEMA's Shelter and Services Program, which gives grants to local governments and nonprofits to take care of undocumented migrants, Congress boosted the budget from $360 million in fiscal year 2023 to $650 million in fiscal year 2024. The program's 2023 annual report says it provides shelter, such as hotel and motel services, food and transportation, including plane tickets up to $700 a person. As we said, Congress appropriated this money just as it did the disaster fund. There's no evidence that any money from the disaster fund was used to help migrants. But at recent rallies, both Trump and Luna have doubled down on their lies about Biden withholding aid from red states.
Mr. President, to follow up on that, because the media is here, I do believe that they've intentionally, and this is my opinion, not helped out those residents because it's red communities that are impacted. Let's call a spade a spade. Do your job and do better.
The real irony of Trump lying about Biden using emergency relief funds on illegal immigrants is that Trump actually did that himself when he was in office. As the Washington Post reports, no, Biden didn't take FEMA relief money to use on migrants, but Trump did. In 2019, the Trump administration, in the middle of hurricane season, told Congress that it was taking $271 million from DHS programs, including $155 million from the disaster fund, to pay for immigration detention space and temporary hearing locations for asylum seekers who had been forced to wait in Mexico. But the most infuriating and hypocritical part of Trump's lies about Biden withholding aid from red states for political reasons is that Trump has a long history of doing that very thing. Trump refused to give California wildfire aid until told how many people there voted for him, X-Aid says. And here's a tweet from 2019. Billions of dollars are sent to the state of California for forest fires that, with proper forest management, would never happen. Unless they get their act together, which is unlikely, I have ordered FEMA to send no more money. And he even reiterated his desire to withhold relief funds from California as early as 3 weeks ago.
And Gavin Newsom is going to sign those papers. And if he doesn't sign those papers, we won't give him money to put out all his fires. And if we don't give him the money to put out his fires, he's got problems. He's a lousy governor.
And that's not to mention the stunt he pulled after the hurricane in Puerto Rico. If you don't remember it, that's the one where 3,000 people died, and his response was to block $20 billion in aid and went and tossed paper towels at people instead. New probe confirms Trump officials blocked Puerto Rico from receiving hurricane aid. The Trump administration also obstructed an investigation looking into why it was depriving the U.S. territory of congressionally approved funds, the report found. But that's cool, because, he went down there and did this shit instead. Who needs FEMA aid when you can have a single roll of paper towel tossed to you by an orange dipshit? But the lies haven't stopped coming from MAGA World, where they're now trying to spin the $750 immediate relief fund as somehow bad because they claim that the government is giving illegal immigrants thousands. Americans struggling from Helene get a one-time payment of $750 while illegal immigrants receive a summon instances? Oh, guy can't even type. Over $13,000 a month in benefits and taxpayer dollars, and over 20 million I've been into our country. Okay, first of all, this guy's retarded. Second of all, none of that is true. It's not a $750 one-time payment. That's what the immediate relief fund starts at. You get that for walking around money if you don't have access to an ATM, to buy immediate necessities like food, water. The only problem is not only is the claim about illegal immigrants getting thousands a complete lie, but the FEMA disaster relief actually starts at $750. And even more ironic is the fact that during the Trump administration, it was only $500. The maximum individual FEMA disaster grant is $42,500 for housing assistance and $42,500 for other needs assistance in 2024. Kinda sounds like a lot more than $750. This prompted Knox County, Tennessee Mayor Glenn Jacobs to tell people to knock it off with the stupid conspiracies. Two things. One, to my knowledge, FEMA and TEMA nor anyone else is confiscating supplies. Please quit spreading those rumors as they are counterproductive to response efforts. And two, if everyone could maybe please put aside the hate for a bit and pitch in to help out, that'd be great. And North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper praised Kamala Harris's hurricane response.
This has been a massive, unprecedented response. We are deeply grateful for the federal resources that we have.
But these lies haven't just pissed off FEMA officials on the ground that are trying to save lives while Trump lies about them even being there. They've also pissed off local residents of affected states who have started taking to social media to try and debunk Trump's lies themselves.
Back when Hurricane Florence hit in North Carolina, Donald Trump sat on his fucking ass for 2 months. He let the government shut down. 41 people died, and Roy Cooper had to get on his fucking knees and beg him for 2 fucking months for help. All right, you want to know where my president's at now? All right, he's already declared North Carolina a federal disaster, all right, which speeds FEMA up. All right, we got 3 federal teams here already in the first place. We got 50 search teams, 19 states sending helicopters and fucking supplies and manpower. You want to know where the fuck my president is? He's here, all right? The only thing I wanted to know was where the fuck my president was at.
And Trump's own Homeland Security advisor also called him out on his lies. Let me be very clear, as a Homeland Security advisor in the Trump White House, I witnessed firsthand how Donald Trump politicized disaster relief, leaving devastated Americans waiting for help. Leaders across the country and government were calling my office desperate for action as Trump failed them in moments of crisis. Today, he's once again failing Americans by distorting the facts and spreading lies. The reality? The Biden-Harris administration is stepping up in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene with decisive leadership and swift and effective response. But that hasn't stopped mega morons from trying to cause more chaos with their BS, as Trump's favorite living scarecrow, Laura Loomer, is now trying to get hurricane victims to not comply with FEMA. The people in Appalachia should not comply with FEMA. This is a matter of survival. Do not comply with FEMA. Yeah, this is the kind of shit that gets people killed, by the way. Because they don't actually care how many people get hurt or even die as a result of their lies. All you are to them are pawns to be used in Trump's little political games, as he said himself multiple times.
Even if you vote and then pass away, it's worth it. Even if you vote and then pass away, it's worth it.
Yeah, keep in mind, this was during a blizzard in, I believe, New Hampshire or New Jersey or something, where multiple people had already died. And he's saying that as long as I get your vote, it doesn't matter if you die immediately after.
Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
Ha 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 ha! He doesn't care about us. He just wants our vote. Ha 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 ha! These people are retarded.
It's horrible to see that happening. That's just horrible. So surprising to see it here. But we'll have to get over it. It's horrible to see that happening.
Yeah, the thing he's telling people to get over there was a school shooting where multiple kids were killed. But yeah, you gotta get over that so he can get some votes out of you. But if you happen to be in one of the affected areas and you're hoping for Congress to approve more aid anytime soon, I'm afraid you're going to be waiting a while, since despite Biden desperately trying to get them to call a special session to approve FEMA funding, Speaker Mike Johnson has made it perfectly clear that he thinks you guys can wait until they get back over a month from now.
Speaker Johnson has said a supplemental can wait until after the election. What kind of timeline do you have in mind, sir?
We can't wait. Can't wait. People need help now. Thank you.
What are your plans for emergency funding? Are you going to call Congress back in?
Well, right before we left on Wednesday, a week ago, Congress appropriated $20 billion to FEMA to cover the immediate aftermath of the storm. I think the timing of that will probably correspond when Congress is expected to return to session right after the election.
And just a fun little side note here, the Republican-led 118th Congress has only been in session 127 days this year, and has had 150 days off, including weekends. And it's been the least effective Congress in over 100 years, passing only 47 bills so far compared to the previous 365 bills passed by the Nancy Pelosi-led 117th Congress. The days in gray here are the days that Congress was actually in session. And I don't know about you, but I really wish I had this many days off work. And these are the number of bills enacted by each Congress in the United States from 1973 to 2023. And as you can see, we were really pumping them out in the 70s. But down here in 2021, when Nancy Pelosi was in charge, we had 365 bills passed. That's almost one a day for that year. In the 118th Congress, however, we're at only 47. And they haven't been wasting the precious few bills they've actually managed to pass doing stupid little things like funding FEMA. Instead, they've been focusing on the important stuff, like renaming a prison in Florida after Trump, and renaming an airport in Virginia after Trump. But not to worry, because apparently the Orange Buffoon has started a GoFundMe where all you non-billionaires can chip in and help out with the recovery effort. And that GoFundMe was coincidentally set up by Meredith O'Rourke, who has been Trump's finance director and senior advisor since 2022, and also happened to be the same person in charge of the GoFundMe for the victims of the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt. But when online sleuths connected the dots and noticed that it's been months since then and the money still hadn't been paid out, by what I'm sure is pure coincidence, the money was finally paid out to the victims' families on October 4th. Months after the fact. Only after the connection between the GoFundMe started gaining traction online. Based on the convenient timing of the payments, it kinda seems like Trump just didn't think it was a great idea to add another charity scam to his resume a month out from the election. Seeing as he's already scammed kids' cancer charities, and a charity for veterans, and a charity for dogs, and what's this one? Eric Trump funneled cancer charity money to his business, and Donald Trump pays a court-ordered $2 million for illegally using Trump Foundation funds, and another one down here. A judge says Trump must pay $2 million for misuse of foundation funds. The case is tied to a televised fundraiser for veterans held by Trump in Iowa, because he's never one to miss out on an opportunity to screw over veterans. And as if to add a stupid cherry on top of this whole brain-dead endeavor, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to chime in by trying to blame the hurricane on Democrats, claiming that they can somehow control the weather, despite the fact that she's always ranting in Congress about humans can't affect the climate.
People are not affecting climate change. You're going to tell me that back in the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay, and how many changes did governments make to melt the ice?
Brilliant. Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say they can't. Okay, so then what was this shit?
People are not affecting climate change.
And cut to today. Can't even keep her bullshit straight. But thankfully, Jessica Tarlov, the only sane person left at Fox News, destroyed her maggot co-host hurricane lies right to their stupid faces.
Jessica, how do you see it? Dramatically differently from how my colleagues see it. So just a couple notes. Trump closes strong in Georgia. He lost Georgia. So I guess if someone had found him 11,237 votes, it would have gone better, but he's a loser there.
I meant by campaign activity.
Oh, he shows up a lot and people see him and then they vote against him. Starlink, there are 40 satellites that are already going. In Maui, by the way, the $700 was the FEMA limit. So Donald Trump and his supporters are running the same old tired playbook that they did with Maui and they did with East Palestine. So not only was Joe Biden on top of this, he signed the disaster declarations even before the storms hit to make sure that there would be no delay in goods and services. Donald Trump's social media posts contain blatant lies, like Governor Kemp can't reach the president. Governor Kemp gave a press conference yesterday where he said, I just spoke to the president. He has promised me every single thing that I need. McMaster from South Carolina, also a conservative, getting everything that he wants, and then Roy Cooper as well. And there's only one president that we are talking about who actually has denied relief for one of these states. In 2017, Roy Cooper asked after Hurricane Matthew for a lot of money, and he got 1% of his ask. They denied 99% of what he was asking for after that hurricane came. There are 3,300 FEMA personnel there, 5,500 National Guardsmen from 11 states, and search and rescue from 19 states. That doesn't reduce the devastation of this and how horrific it is, but to say that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are out to lunch during this, or they're sitting on a beach reclining there, They are clearly giving them what they need. They will be showing up when it is appropriate. And it's different for Donald Trump, who is not in office. He's just a guy trying to be president again, to show up and throw some bounty at people, versus someone who's actually the commander in chief and doesn't want to distract from what's going on. And as Dana said, Governor Cooper said, I will let you know when it is appropriate for you to come. And same goes for Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, all of it.
Now, there's been an insane amount of updates to this story over the last couple of weeks, so bear with me here. Oh yeah, Trump hurricane lies have radicalized retards more than usual.
Boy, if you still support this administration after what they're doing for the hurricane victims, you're a piece of fucking shit. I'm telling you what, man, it's time for this country to rise up. Invoke our Second Amendment for what our forefathers intended it to be. I'm telling you, man, being tolerant of this fucking bullshit is what got us to this damn point. I tell you what, man, I see a son bitch wearing a Harris hat, I'm going to put knots on that head faster than he can rub them. Guaranteed.
You can literally hear the stupidity in his voice. Well, where have I seen this guy before? Oh yeah, there he is. But this is the price of Trump's lies. This is the actual human toll associated with his bullshit.
My father-in-law lives just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and he was badly damaged by Hurricane Helene. And he has refused all FEMA help because he's a hardcore Trumper. And he literally believes that if he accepts anything from FEMA, they're going to take his house. I don't understand how so many people are under the spell of this freaking con man. I don't understand it.
Oh, it's absolutely heartbreaking about your father-in-law. I'm so sorry to hear it. You know, I hope.
Man, it's hard to even imagine it. I mean, he lost almost everything, and he's refusing all help from the federal government and complaining to us that he doesn't have food, that he doesn't have the stuff he needs, and yet he won't accept the help. What the hell are we supposed to do? We're not in a position to be able to fly across the country and help him. Yeah. There's people begging us to get him to accept help, and he won't do it.
Wow.
And I guarantee you, I'm not the only one. I guarantee you, I'm not the only one.
I wish there was something I could say as to, you know, I don't know. Does he have access to any electronics where you could send him some information debunking this, and that he might?
We've done all of that. We've done all of that. We've sent him all the FEMA bulletins. We've sent him all the stuff from the fact checkers. He doesn't believe it. He thinks it's all, he just believes Trump. Literally, Dan, it's a cult. He's a cult member. I'm sorry to say it. He's a cult member. And he's my father-in-law, and it sucks.
And Trump's lies have even gotten so bad that Fox News has started calling him out for it.
We also get a lot of misinformation, don't we? We get people who say in North Carolina that if you're a Republican, you're not going to get help. If you're a Democrat, you'll get help. I would imagine that does a huge disservice to people working together and scares the bejesus out of others when they believe it.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I worried about the false claim that was going on, for example, that had people believing that if you got $750 in immediate help, that you were never going to get anything else. You know, what if somebody hears that, they believe it, and then they don't apply for more aid that they could absolutely qualify for? So, you know, there are real costs and real consequences to that misinformation. But
Donald Trump said that about North Carolina. Republicans not getting help, Democrats getting help. That was Donald Trump. And these monies that you get from FEMA, that $750 was money up front for people who can't access ATM machines, that kind of thing. So it wasn't just a one-shot, that's it. It's a way for people to get hands on cash they desperately need, not the only money they will ever get or hope to get. But that kind of misinformation gets out there. And whether it's perpetrated by a politician or someone you think is someone of note and authority, it is wrong and it is bull, and it cannot be tolerated.
But the one good thing that's come of all this is that it's given everybody a fresh reminder of just how much of a disaster Trump's first term really was.
I worked in the Trump administration. Never in a million years did I ever think that I'd be working in the White House with a president that didn't care about the American people.
He would suggest not giving disaster relief to states that hadn't voted for him.
I remember one time after a wildfire in California, he wouldn't send relief because it was a Democratic state. So we went as far as looking up how many votes he got in those impacted areas to show him these are people who voted for you. This isn't normal. The job of the president is to protect Americans, regardless of politics.
If Trump's elected again, there'll be no one to stop his worst instincts. You'll have yes men help him implement Project 2025's agenda. Unchecked power, no guardrails.
They will be serving one man. I am voting for Kamala Harris because she will put the safety and security of every American first, whether they voted for her or not.
And before they even start with the lies about Biden and Kamala's response to Hurricane Milton, they already ordered federal assistance 3 days before it made landfall.
There are federal resources you are entitled to receive without condition. And there are resources that are available to you to deal with what you need right now, to, for example, get money to be able to fill your prescriptions and deal with a hotel expense and help you recover over the longer term. The other point I would make is this, and I've done this work in my career. Sadly, there are some folks who, during the moment of a crisis, will be very predatory and start jacking up prices like gasoline or hotels, or airlines to take advantage of the desperation people are experiencing. So to anybody who's thinking about jacking up those prices, those companies that are thinking about doing it, know that we are monitoring and we're watching. And if there is that kind of price gouging, that there will be a consequence for that, because it's just wrong to take advantage of people who are desperate for help. And so know that we're watching that as well.